Alright guys, my name is MetaGoblin today, just making a very quick kind of podcasty discussion video about the likeliness of Burning Crusade servers in the future, and furthermore talking about how should they actually release. So watching this video guys, you're probably thinking, MetaGoblin, what the hell are you doing talking about the Burning Crusade? Classic WoW is barely finished, we're barely done with Classic, why are you talking about a Burning Crusade? Stop being a millennial, stop looking for your instant gratification, and fair enough, that is a pretty good criticism in all honesty, but I really love the Burning Crusade. There's many things I really love about the Burning Crusade, and that's why I just want to talk about it. And the main reason, to be honest, why I want to talk about it is because I think if the Burning Crusade servers are ever going to be a thing, I think they're definitely going to be announced this year or early next year, and there's a number of reasons why I first of all think they're quite likely and why they would probably have to be basically announced this year or next year. Just before we jump in guys, please do give me a quick follow on Twitch if you want to catch any of my live streams. I'm trying to stick to a much more strict streaming schedule now. I try to stream about 3 times per week, pretty much guaranteed, so look forward to that soon. So let me run through the reasons why I think the Burning Crusade servers are likely to happen in the future, and how I think that personally, how they should actually launch. Should they progress from our Classic WoW character? Should they launch with a fresh server? What should happen to Classic WoW, at the end of its lifetime? All these things that I'm going to basically discuss in the video. The first point I have is a financial point, because looking from a financial standpoint, it makes a lot of sense for Blizzard to make a Burning Crusade server. So you have to bear in mind that Blizzard is pretty much owned by Activision now, a very profit-driven publisher rather than developer. So they are dominated, they are controlled by a very profit-driven publisher. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. They are very just hungry for money, like pretty much everyone in the industry. So it makes sense. Like if you put these two things together, Blizzard could take the time to develop a new MMO or a new game, okay, which would cost money. You'd have to pay staff to develop it, you'd have to pay staff to market it, you'd have to pay a lot of people to do a lot of things to release a new game, and it would take a lot of time. It would take, easily minimum 2 years, maybe even longer. There's some games that take, even up to 5 years to actually fully develop, especially some MMOs, particularly in the indie industry at the moment anyway. But moving on, so it costs a lot of money to make a new game, costs new money to actually develop stuff, but guess what doesn't cost a lot of money? Re-releasing your old game. So to release the Burning Crusade servers, it would basically be very minimal cost to Blizzard and Activision, with a lot of potential profit to be gained from releasing the Burning Crusade servers. It makes a lot of sense for, if I was a profit-driven company, I would release a Burning Crusade. I would be planning to do it, already thinking about it pretty much. I would have been thinking about it the second Classic WoW came out. That is possibly happening in Activision Blizzard right now. They probably are possibly thinking about the Burning Crusade servers right now, because to me it makes a lot of financial sense for Classic WoW to naturally progress into legacy Burning Crusade servers. A number of reasons, because at the end of the day, the interest in Classic WoW is going to diminish over time. I would say it already is diminishing somewhat, because it's taken so long for Phase 3 to come out. Well, it hasn't taken so long for Phase 3 to come out. I just think because we're burning through, I've talked about this previously, we are burning through content much faster now because we are much more acclimatized to the MMO difficulty of the MMO genre. So we are burning through content very fast through Classic WoW, and the interest in Classic WoW is slow diminishing. I look at it from my analytics on my videos. I normally used to get like 20,000 views a day. Now I'm more looking at 15,000 views a day. There's a drop in my analytics. There's no longer server queues or anything like that. Not saying the game isn't popular by any means, it is still a very popular game, but it's definitely less popular, okay? So in order to maintain interest and excitement in legacy servers for World of Warcraft, it makes sense to me for Blizzard to announce a Burning Crusade servers this year in order to keep the momentum going, in order to keep the snowball going. Otherwise people are just going to be like, well, we're playing Classic, less and less people are playing Classic. When Naxxramas comes out, people are going to get a nasty shock of how difficult the content is. A lot of people probably won't even see Nax, they'll get bored of doing Anchorage so much and, stuff like that. That during phase, I think it's phase 6, the last phase that we're going to have during the next patch, there's definitely going to be a massive drop in interest in the game. It's definitely going to happen because the content is so ridiculously hard, and people we're burning through content ridiculously fast in Classic WoW right now. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a drop off in interest in phase 6. So it makes sense to me during phase 6 for Blizzard to announce the progression into the Burning Crusade servers. Again, in order to maintain the excitement, the interest, maintain those subscription numbers, guys. This is another important thing to think about, because the majority of people subscribed to World of Warcraft are subscribed to play Classic, but not actually subscribed to play retail. I think Blizzard are kind of counting on the fact that people might give retail a little bit of a, dip their toe to play retail, because they're subscribed to Classic and they basically can play it, or maybe have it discounted or something like that. I might see that also in the future. But at the end of the day, not that much. I mean, not many people are actually interested in retail. Not many Classic players are interested in retail. It's very rare that you actually come across a retail player who's playing Classic and retail, partly because I don't think anyone really has the time to commit time into both. So, bit of an unrealistic probably move. Well, probably not the best move by Blizzard, to be honest, the best expectation. And I think it would be a much wiser decision again for them to progress into the Burning Crusade servers. I think the Classic community, the Legacy community as we can call it, well, as we would have to call it if the Burning Crusade came out, I definitely think would be 10 times more interested in a Burning Crusade Legacy servers rather than retail World of Warcraft. No matter all the changes that they're going to make, no matter, you put in the level 60 level cap on retail, it really doesn't matter, right? Some number doesn't matter. People aren't interested in retail anymore. People are way more interested in the older state of the game, because guess what? It was a much more of an MMO, an actual game that stays true to its roots, and it's an actual playable, interesting game. But anyway, I'm going to pause the video and look at my extra points before I babble on. Overall, I think there is a massive demand and a massive interest for people to play the Burning Crusade again. Very evident by the popularity of the Burning Crusade private servers. Warmane had thousands of people playing it. Recently, Neverwing had a very big player base, and the interest in play TBC after Nestarius went down. Obviously that massively crashed, but there's a really high interest in the Burning Crusade servers. A lot of people regard the Burning Crusade actually better than Classic WoW, because it's basically the same as Classic WoW with a few extra features, more viable specs, so you're not restricted to what class you play, and there's a few improvements to the quality of life of the game. So a lot of people, including me, to be honest, although I'm kind of unsure, to be honest, I probably do kind of prefer the Burning Crusade to Classic, although I just love them so much that it's like a 1% advantage on the Burning Crusade side. I don't know, it's a difficult one because I love to get to both games so much, but I think a lot of people do drastically prefer the Burning Crusade simply for that fact that you can actually play Retribution Paladin, you can play Feral Druid, Enhancement Shaman. All these less viable specs in the Classic are actually more viable, and you feel more useful, in the Burning Crusade. What I really like about the Burning Crusade is how support classes are much more fleshed out. Talked about this previously on stream, how the Shadow Priest, the Shadow Priest's job was to do a little bit of damage, but you're probably not going to do as much damage as a mage, obviously, but simultaneously you are regenerating mana for the entire raid. Shadow Priests have a nickname of being a mana battery, and they're doing a lot of AoE passive healing as they do damage as well. So, yeah, I really like the support classes in the Burning Crusade. This is probably the reason why I'm talking about it, and I love the Burning Crusade so much. Just drop my notes. The next thing that I really wanted to touch on is how the hell should the Burning Crusade launch? So I've been thinking about this a little bit. It's a difficult one because there's a number of ways that you can do it, and obviously you don't want to make it too unlike the actual experience of a Burning Crusade. The first way that you could launch a Burning Crusade, which is I honestly think probably the most likely way that they're going to do it, is progressing our Classic characters onto the Burning Crusade, all our level 60s, go into the Dark Portal, and going to experience Outland content. Personally, I think this will be an absolute disaster. This is my personal preferred way of doing it, and I'll talk why. It is advantageous. It is a nice thing because obviously you won't have to level up again. What people probably have a lot of anxiety about right now when it comes to their Classic WoW characters is what actually is going to happen to them when Classic WoW fulfills its lifetime, when Phase 6 has been out for 6 months. What's actually going to happen to our Classic WoW characters? You know, because we're going to get bored of the game, we're not going to play the game as much. What's actually going to happen to our characters? Are the server's going to be shut down? Very unlikely, because people will be very aggravated by that, and Blizzard are a company that, you know, don't want a lot of aggravation aimed at them. Or are they going to progress again, like into the Burning Crusade characters, which is probably the most likely to keep the fans and players like the most satisfied and happy about the condition of a Burning Crusade launch. But the issues I can see popping up with a Burning Crusade launch from that progresses our level 60 characters is one thing, and that is the Dark Portal. Okay, the Dark Portal, the reason why it's called the Dark Portal is because every single launch, Burning Crusade launch and Walls of Draenor launch, have been absolutely terrible. I wasn't there during a Burning Crusade launch, but I've heard some absolute horror stories about the Burning Crusade launch from old Preach videos, Preach gaming videos, you should check him out. And I was there at the Wall to Draenor launch, which was an absolute disaster, like you would not believe. It was so unplayable, and the reason why it's so unplayable is because you've got basically every single player on the server in one place, which is why I think the launch would be an absolute disaster. And my preferred way of doing a Burning Crusade launch would to actually basically put everyone on a fresh server. Pretty much how private servers do it. Yeah, some private servers did give you a level 60, but I think the better way to do it, fair enough, Blizzard might be able to cope with it. It might be able to do sharding and layering and all that kind of thing to actually cope with a launch, but it's very doubtful. I mean, we had sharding and everything on the Launcher Classic, and it was kind of a disaster. But then again, like, the player base was split between 8 different races, 8 different starting areas, and it was still pretty bad. Imagine 8 different races. In fact, it will be 10 different races, because we add 2 races, all in the same spot at once, right? So I can see that being an absolute disaster, which is why my preferred launch for a Burning Crusade launch would be to just have it as a totally fresh server. You have to make a level 1 character and that's it, because if everyone had to make a level 1 character on a fresh server, the player base would be more divided amongst the world, particularly even more divided because a lot of people will be making Draenei and Blood Elves. Fair enough, the Draenei and Blood Elf starting areas will probably have more problems than the other starting areas, but then again, a lot of people don't like those races and won't play those races. To be fair, I think Blood Elf and Draenei aren't the most popular races in all honesty. I think Blood Elf actually quite popular because Blood Elf Paladin particularly. But I think it will be a much smoother launch, a much smoother experience for everyone. And one thing that I personally did not like about the Cataclysm launch, and I think a lot of people probably experienced this on the Burning Crusade launch, is how you basically got a new playable race that you want to play, but do you play the new race, or do you level your level 60 to level 70 as fast as possible? Like, what do you do? And it's a tough decision, really. I think most people probably do not opt to play the new races because they can't bother leveling all the way up again. So what happens most of the time is that Blood Elf and Draenei, or in my case Worgen and Goblin, become like an alt race, like a race for your alt, or actually people literally pay to change their race, which is absolutely disastrous, the way of doing it. So what essentially is happening is it's a difficult decision because people don't want to level all the way, all over again. So most people probably won't choose to play a Draenei or a Blood Elf, which means the race that you've created, the starter area that you've created, doesn't actually, the content there doesn't really get seen that much, which is, I think it's just not a great thing, to be honest. So that's why I personally think that it would be better if the Burning Crusade server came out, everyone starts at level 1, have to start off from fresh, and I think basically more people would be inclined to play Draenei or Blood Elf. Now, I just think it would just be a better process for launching a server, but I think it's a fairly unlikely way to do it. But then again, you've got to think about what happens to your level 60 character if it's going to stay on the classic WoW servers. Like, what happens? Do the classic WoW servers become kind of like some kind of dystopian film where people, the player base starts like dropping off gradually and people just log on there to kind of look at their character and it's kind of like a vault for their old level 60 characters? Or do they add the option for us to play our level 60 characters after a month of the game being launched, but then it's kind of unfair because then you'll have 2 level 60s. So, well, to be fair, it isn't really unfair because you would level, from fresh again. So it's a difficult one, but personally, I would launch the game, everyone level 1, but after a month you gain access to, you can have the option to move your level 60 to the new Burning Crusade, you know, realms, to progress that character as like an alt possibly, so you don't lose your character, and then give people the option to basically keep their character on an old classic WoW server. But the thing is, like, well, the issue with that, which personally why I think my way of doing it is probably even more unlikely, and the other method is more likely, is Blizzard aren't gonna like pay for the server to keep the servers up for your, you know, your old level 60 character on classic WoW. It's not gonna happen. And again, like, if for instance that Burning Crusade never released and people just slowly became less and less interested in classic WoW, what would happen to your characters at the end of the day? Like, they're not going to pay to keep the servers up, they're just not going to pay. So what are they going to do? Are they just going to close down the servers and everyone loses their character? Probably not, because that's never, first of all, that's never existed in, you know, retail World of Warcraft's history, because people would just be so aggravated that Blizzard deleted their character. So that's why I find it even, like, less likely. It's like they're either not going to release it at all and let classic WoW dwindle into nothing, which will be a very massive disappointment, and then focus all their efforts on retail, relying on retail World of Warcraft to carry the, you know, World of Warcraft back to its glory. Never going to happen. Or they will progress into the Burning Crusade. That's how I can see it in the future. It doesn't make much sense to me that they wouldn't launch the Burning Crusade servers, to be honest, because there's very minimal cost to re-releasing an expansion. They've already got the content there. They don't have to redevelop content. They don't have to do anything new. They don't have to be creative in any single way. Just a little bit of tweaking here and there to make the Burning Crusade, you know, playable on modern computers. You know, compatibility patches. You know, all this kind of thing that they have to do. It's like, it's scripting tweaks, really. It's minimal work. As much work as they like to make out, it really isn't that much work. And there's only a massive amount of profit to be made. And look at the success of a classic WoW launch. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was nothing that Blizzard ever expected to do. I mean, if I'm actually logged into my character. Well, I'm not logged into my character. I'm on the realm screen here. Jesus Christ, we started off with, like, what? I can't remember how many servers we started off with. 6, 7, 8, 6 to 8 servers. I don't really remember. Now there's an absolute full page of loads of servers, all at high population. The majority of them are at high population. So, you know what I mean? Like, this game is way more popular than people anticipated. I'm only looking at EU servers at the end of the day. So, the Burning Crusade, would it be even more popular? Not really sure. Maybe that's a topic for a different video, but it's definitely going to be probably equally as popular to Classic WoW, so really they have the equal amount of money to gain from releasing a Burning Crusade server. So it just makes sense. Like, if Blizzard had, like, more than 2 brain cells, which I'm pretty sure they do, they'd release a Burning Crusade servers. And that's how I'm going to conclude this video, guys. My name is Goblin. To my next video. Ciao.